Concrete operations. Step 1. Lubricate the forms and moisten the base course. Prior to the arrival of the concrete truck, begin the pour by lubricating the forms and moistening the base course with water. The moistening of the base course is done to prevent water from evaporating rapidly out of the freshly poured concrete. Number 2. Slump test. Upon arrival of the concrete truck, the slump test must be immediately performed. The slump test measures flowability, the ability to consolidate, and uniformity from batch to batch. Note: the slump test must be accomplished within 2.5 minutes. Performing the slump test. First, begin by filling the slump cone 1/3 full with concrete and tamping with a tamping rod 25 times. At this time, mark on the rod 1 inch into the first layer. Next, fill the slump cone 2/3 full with concrete and again tamp 25 times with the tamping rod. At this time, mark on the rod 1 inch into the second layer. Lastly, overfill the slump cone and tamp 25 times with the tamping rod. Once the tamping rod is completed, screed off any excess concrete with the tamping rod. Pull the cone straight up and flip the cone over, placing it onto the base. Next, place the rod across the cone and measure from the bottom of the rod to the top of the concrete. The number of inches from the bottom of the rod to the top of the concrete is our concrete slump. Number 3. Place concrete. You are now ready to place the concrete. During this process, the chute man or woman will work the chute of the concrete truck to place the concrete into the hole. Workers in the hole will then use concrete rakes and square point shovels to place, move, and level the concrete in areas where the chute is unable to reach. Use the forms in existing concrete to provide a guide for our height. Note: care should be taken to place concrete as close to its final resting place as possible. This prevents possible mix segregation. Step 4. Concrete consolidation. The concrete vibrator will start once the hole is half filled. The concrete vibrator is inserted vertically into the wet concrete and pulled vertically out. This is done about every foot. Pay special attention to the areas around the forms. Note: tapping is done on the form edges with a rubber mallet to prevent the concrete from honeycombing. Honeycombing is caused when a larger aggregate in the concrete fails to blend with the smaller aggregate, leaving visible voids in the mix. Honeycombing is avoided by proper consolidation of the concrete. Step 5. Screeding. Once the hole is completely filled and the rough level has been established, during the placement process, screeding will begin. The roller screed, powered by a hydraulic engine, is operated by 2 airmen. One airman will have the controls and set the pace while the other will simply pull along to stay even with the lead airman. As the screed is pulled along, 2 airmen in the hole will use rakes to fill low spots in the front of the screed and pull high spots back to allow the screed to continue in a smooth fashion. There should be a small windrow of concrete in the front of the screed as the screed is pulled down the pad. If at any point there is too much excess material in front of the screed, shovels will be used to move it out of the way. Step 6. Bull floating. Bull floating should begin as soon as the screed has made its final pass. Start at the beginning of the concrete pad and continue down the entire length of the slab. The leading edge of the float is raised slightly as it glides along the concrete, pushing the aggregate down and bringing the paste cement to the surface. Step 7. Edging and floating. Edging is accomplished by maneuvering the edger back and forth, raising the leading edge of the tool along the edge of the wet concrete. Raising the leading edge prevents the edger from simply digging down into the wet concrete. Use mag floats to fill in the low spots and cut the high spots around the edge. Mag floats should also be used to get rid of any existing lines that were created by the edging process. Do not overwork the concrete. Once the edge is completed, simply move to a different area that has not been edged. Note: attention needs to be given to avoid rolling the edges with the tool. Step 8. Joint installation. Joints can either be installed using a jointer or cut with a concrete saw at a later date. Measure the same distance on each side of the concrete pad to ensure the joints are even and straight. Create a line in the wet concrete using a string line or a straight edge as a guide. Install with a joiner while the concrete is still workable, or saw in at a later date using a concrete saw. Step number 9. Non-skid finish. A non-skid finish is done using a soft bristled broom or burlap. Brooming is ready to be done when the concrete is firm but not yet completely set. To begin, wet the broom, but be sure to shake off any excess water before applying. One person will walk the broom end around the concrete pad and place it along the joint edge, assuring the bristles align perfectly inside the joint face. The broom is pulled in a smooth motion perpendicular to the flow of traffic. Begin by ensuring the broom is square with the concrete pad. The broom is then pulled straight back until the bristles contact the form nearest to the airman pulling the broom. The broom is then lifted off of the concrete, and any paste accumulated on the broom is cleaned off away from the pad. This process is continued until a non-skid finish is achieved across the entire surface of the slab. Note: broom marks need to overlap by 2 inches. Step 10. Curing. The concrete is ready to be cured when it is resistant to marking. Curing compound will be applied with a sprayer. Curing compound only requires 1 application. Note: if water is used, it must be continuous and applied with a hose and a nozzle.